Hi lovelies, you're welcome back to my channel today. Thank you all for stopping right here, and in today's tutorial we'll be recreating this beautiful dress you see right here on your screen. So I was inspired by the one you see at the right side of this screen, and the ones at the middle and on the left side I recreated them. It has two sides inseam pockets, and it also has these ruffles on the sleeve area and also on the waist area. So this is a 180 degrees flare gown that has a belt attached at the middle or center of this gown. So I recreated mine using this red fabric and also this 100% cotton African Ankara print, and the combination I use at the upper part is actually red in color, which is a very pronounced color on the actual African print fabric I used to recreate mine. So without wasting much time, we'll dive right into what we have for today. So just like I said earlier, this is a 100% African print fabric, and for the combination I use this red poly fabric, which is stretchy as you can see right here, and it is a color from my African print as you can see clearly. So I just chose the red color from my African print. So I have 1 yard of this poly fabric, and for my African Ankara print I used 3 yards to achieve this beautiful gown. So I'll keep all of that aside now so that I can start working on my red fabric, which is my poly fabric. So I'm going to start by trying to know the part that stretches the most so that it can be on the sides or it can be horizontal, right? So when I must have gone ahead to do all of that, I'll fold my fabric into two. But before I fold into two, I'll divide my bust circumference, which is the largest part of the upper part of our bodies, into 4. So I got it right there, and I added extra 1 inch for stitching allowance. So that is what I'm going to mark right there before I'll go ahead and fold and know what to be enough for me to draft my half scale basic bodice. So having achieved all of that, now I started off by marking this line at the top part of this my fabric, and that is my shoulder line, and all my measurements will be starting from there. So on that line which I marked earlier, I divided my shoulder into 2. I marked 8 inches. From that 8 inches I came down by 8 inches again, and that is for my armhole. So I went ahead to highlight this more. So I divided my bust circumference by 4. So whatever it is I have right there, I'm simply going to mark it on that line, which is my chest line. So my bust circumference divided by 4, I think it was around 11.5 inches or so. Okay, so it was 11.75. So I marked it right there and extended that line. So I'll get the half of my armhole, and I'm going to mark a chalk right there, and I came in by half of an inch. Now I'm making a curvy connection from my shoulder line all the way to my armhole line down to my chest line, as you can see right here, and I believe is very clear to you all. So having done that, I'll move over now to the neckline. So for my neck depth, I'm working with a neck depth of 8 inches. So we all know that this dress actually has a V neckline, so I want mine to be very deep. So for the neck width or the wideness of my neck, I marked 3 inches. Now using my stretch ruler, I'm going to connect these 3 inches all the way down to this 8 inches, which is my neck depth. So having done that, as you can see right here, I'll proceed now to also impute my shoulder slope or my slant by coming up by half of an inch exactly from my neck width and slant it to the other part of my shoulder, as you can see I've done right here. So placing my tape on my shoulder line, which is that first line, I got my half length of 17.5 inches, which I made a point right there, and I went ahead to add extra 3/4 inch, which is going to be for the joining allowance to the lower part of this our dress. So remember that this is a gown that has these joints at the half length. Okay, so proceed with that, and having extended that line, that point I made into a straight line, I divided my waist circumference by 4. So what I had was 10.5 inches, which I marked right there on my waistline. So I'm going to connect the point I have on my chest line all the way down to my waistline, as you can see right here. So having done this, now I'm done drafting, and the next thing is to actually put my stitching or sewing allowance. So I actually added 3/4 of an inch as my stitching allowance because this fabric is stretchy. So by the time I'm stitching, I'll stitch with just 1 inch, meaning that I'll take extra quarter of an inch because my fabric is very stretchy. So when I must have done all of that, I went ahead to cut out from my half length the armhole and also the neckline. So now I want to cut out or draft for my back dress, okay, my back half scale basic bodice. So I folded this into two as well. So from the folded edge of my fabric, I started off by marking 3/4 of an inch. So like I said earlier, this fabric is stretchy. I'll be taking extra quarter of an inch while I'm stitching. All right, so having marked that 3/4 of an inch, I now place the front part of this my dress starting exactly from that 3/4 of an inch, and I make sure I arrange it to get rid of any folds underneath or anywhere. So having done this, now I cut off the half length, the armhole and the sides. Then for my back neckline, I'm actually going to come down from that top part by 2.5 inches, or you can do 3 inches or 2 inches, actually okay. So I'm maintaining my neck width, but my neck depth for the back is 2.5 inches, which I went ahead to create a round neckline. So now that I'm done doing all of that, I'll go ahead and give this my zipper slope. Right, so from my half length, I went out by half of an inch that way, and I went up by 6 inches. Now I'm slightly going to connect these 6 inches to that half of an inch I marked outward, just this way. So following the lines which I've made right there, I'm going to cut this off entirely. Great, I like you, I can't wait. So having done this, now my back is going to be 2 pieces and my front is going to be 1 piece, okay. So we'll be adding or fixing a zipper to the back. So the next thing now is to cut the lower part of our gown, which is the skirt part. So I'm just going to start by subtracting my half skirt I'm subtracting my half scale basic bodice, or my half length of 17.5 inches from the full length of this my gown, which is 42 inches. Now I'm going to start folding from the sides inwardly this way. So I want you all to know that this is an Ankara fabric and each border is 45 inches, okay. So it's not up to 60 inches. So if I should go ahead and fold this the normal way, it's not going to be enough. So all I'm going to do now is to unfold this fabric which I have right here. So you can see by the time I take my waist circumference, I'm not going to have the length of my gown, okay. So now I folded this to be straight and it's going to be long. Then from the top part of this my fabric, I folded down. So I didn't fold from the side anymore to inward, I folded from the upper part downward. So you're just going to fold this and measure up to the length of your skirt and add extra 10 inches to that, okay. So now the length of this my skirt part of my gown will be 25 inches, so I just have to add extra 5 to 10 inches to that for taking our waist and all of that. So when I was okay with the length I folded in so far, so I went ahead now to fold this again in a triangular manner this way. So I'll hold this right there and I'll bring this in this way. So you see here now we actually have a full 180 degrees flare, right? So I'm just going to arrange this properly and ensure that the side that is facing you is open, just the same way it is right here, and the other side is entirely closed, right? So I actually zoomed this out for a proper understanding, okay. So you see this part now is open, this part I have this rough edges is open, and this other side is entirely closed right now. So I made sure I went ahead to arrange all of these points and this whole fabric before I go ahead now to start drafting out. So I'll be cutting off all those rough edges at that side where my hand is later after I'm done. So now I'm just going to subtract my half length, which is 17.5, from my full gown length. So my full gown length is actually 42 inches. If I minus 17.5 inches, I'm going to be having 25 inches and the length of this gown. So before I go ahead now to cut out for my flare, I'm going to divide my waist circumference by 4. But because of that, I'll explain to you why. You have to count how many folds you have. So you can see that I counted my hair. What I have on fold here is 4. So I have 4 unfold as I counted. So now from that top part, that is where we are going to be marking our waist circumference. So you're going to divide your waist circumference by 4, because what we have here is 4 folds. So you divide by 4 and add extra 1 inch to that because of your zipper, right? So you're going to place your tape just at that very tip point on that pointy part on your fabric, and you're going to move around just the same way I did right here in order for you to get your waist circumference, because that is the part we'll be fixing to our half length. Okay, so that is it. So now I went ahead to subtract that 17.5 inches, which is the half length I have. So you can see right there now I have 42 inches, and I'm going to add extra 1.5 inches to that, which is going to serve as my hemming. Okay, so if I bring this tape down, what I have right there is around 26 inches. So that is just simply it. So now at this other side, I'm going to place the tip of my tape on that our waistline, which is that chalk mark we made right there, and I marked 26 inches. So you are not going to place this one now from the top, because this is the length of your gown, of your skirt part of your gown. Okay, so you're going to be doing it this way and be moving your tape slightly, just the same way I'm doing right here. So if you are doing this following the way it's going, you realize that it is not straight. It's going to give you this curve effect, okay, or a semicircle effect. Okay, so as you are marking the length of your skirt, you go ahead and be moving your tape under your waistline, which is that chalk mark we have right there at the top part. So when I did this, after marking this point, I went ahead now to use my chalk to connect these points together, and this is what I have. So the next thing now is for me to actually cut out. Okay, so cut out the waist, as you can see. So here now is the waist, which will be fixed or attached to our half scale basic bodice. So I'll cut out the length. So please, if you're cutting out for the waist part, ensure you leave a half inch at the top part for your joining allowance, which I forgot to do right here. All right, so I went ahead to cut off those rough parts of this fabric I initially told you all I'd be cutting out. So when I open this up, it's still together one piece, but I have to separate them because we'll be fixing a pocket to the sides, and it has to be 2 pieces. So before that, I went ahead to measure my waist circumference. So it wasn't up to what I needed, so I divided my waist circumference by 2. I was supposed to have around 20 something inches. It wasn't enough, so I had to mark half inch around, following the shape and the way my waistline curved. So after marking that, now I went ahead to cut it off. So I also went ahead to measure it again when I was done, and I had exactly my waist circumference and my stitching allowance intact. So I went ahead now to separate this at the middle, just at that point right there. So now I have 2 pieces of this flare. Okay, so we still have to separate one of this piece that we've already separated. Remember, a zipper will be fixed or attached to the back part of our gown. So I brought one and folded another flare, which is one of the flare which I divided earlier, I separated earlier, sorry. So I now went ahead now to divide it into 2 again, as you can see right here. So all together now the amount of flare we have right here is 3 pieces. Okay, so that is just that. And on that part which I separated right now, I also went ahead to notch. So for the side pocket, I went ahead to also cut it out. So it's a bit fast because I'll be dropping a separate detailed tutorial on how to stitch your inseam pocket to your gown. Okay, so this piece I have right here now is going to serve as the ruffles I'll be fixing to the waist part of my gown. So I went ahead now, is at about I think 4 inches wide, and for the length I didn't really measure it. So go ahead and stitch the both parts, the upper part and the lower part, and also the sides. So you can see right here I've gone ahead to do that, and at the middle you're just going to run a gather stitch at the center of this 2 piece. Remember that this ruffles is at both sides on the waist area. Okay, so you're just going to pull this. Just be careful you pull this properly, and you're going to have these ruffles. Okay, so having achieved that, now just keep that aside first, because I need to join the lower part of my skirt to the upper part of my gown or my blouse before I go ahead to fix those ruffles. So now I folded these 2 into 2 to get the middle, which I went ahead to notch. So after notching, I'll make sure that the 2 notches match. so they're going to align right here. So I'll pin it all around on the waist area, and I'll stitch using just half of an inch. So I remember I left 3/4 of an inch for my joining, but I didn't use 3/4 again because of I didn't leave half inch on my skirt waist area for joining to the half scale basic bodice I have right here. Okay, so that's my reason for using just half of an inch. Okay, so now I'll go ahead now and stitch this using just half of an inch. Be careful not to stretch your fabric too much if you're working with a stretchy fabric. Okay, so now I've gone ahead to do this, and this is what I have. So the second part of this tutorial I'll be uploading will be the complete sewing part. It was getting a bit longer, which I didn't actually want at all. We'll be fixing our pocket, our zipper, the ruffles on the sleeve and also on the waist together, and trust me, it's definitely worth it. And this is all I'll be doing in the next tutorial. I'll see you all in my other one, and please do stay tuned to this channel. Don't forget to on your notification bell so you get notified when I drop that tutorial. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so. It's never going to be a thing of regret. And till some other time, lovelies, I'll see you all in my next one. Do have a lovely time ahead of you all. Bye. I can't wait, a first time, a first day.